Meanwhile, on the comic box, a new Iron Man is on the way, and it's a woman? Also, I get to play with a new co-host this week.
Liam O'Rourke.
All right, here we go. Ba-da-bow, ba-ba-doo, da-ba-doo-ba-doom, dum, jigga-da-dum-bum, ba-ba-da-doom, ba-doom, ba-ba-doo-ba-doo, da-ba-doo-ba-doo, comics. Hey everyone, and welcome to The Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. I'm Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic book geek, and with me this week is my buddy Liam. Say hi, Liam.
Hi, Liam.
Hi, Liam. I have known Liam for many a moon.
10 years about now.
Yeah. We're old college buddies, and one of the things that made us college buddies is that we're both into comic books.
Passionately in some cases.
Passionately into comic books. So I figure we had Professor Beej on last time, and we sort of waited to get into his history with comics. But I figure if you're going to be talking during the podcast and stuff, that it'd be good to know a little bit about you before that. So why don't you tell us, listeners out there, which there are more than two.
More than two.
We actually have pretty good numbers, actually, lately. We've been getting up to about 70 people per episode. Anyway, but why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners sort of, how did you get started? Where did you start with comic books?
For me, I got started reading and collecting comic books because my parents divorced, and I would have to take an airplane from New Jersey to Minnesota and back. So at the terminal, I was often given a bunch of comic books to read on the plane. Besides that, I would also go to flea markets with my mom or my dad when I was visiting and buy old comic books there, mainly. Green Lantern. So who was buying you those comics to take on the... Like, your folks were saying, here, kid, read this thing? Or was it you that said, I'm going to be on a plane, I want to read comics? I don't remember who decided it would be comic books. It was probably a combination of things. But some of the early ones that I still have, Ren and Stimpy comic books. Yeah. Let's see. I also got some early Marvel from, the late 80s, early 90s. Some of those wonderful comics that was literally just trade news with like a trading card wedged in there. Not really a comic book, but it's what let me know that there was a Fantastic Four movie in production that we never saw. Thank you, Roger Corman.
So it was way back then. Okay.
Yeah, back then.
Because I was going to ask when that was. So how old were you when you're flying back and forth across the country on your own?
I started flying on my own when I was 6.
Oh, wow.
So that would have been like 89.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, right
back
on.
When you got a full meal.
Yeah.
Flight attendants were stewards and stewardesses, and they were very friendly.
Right on.
Very friendly.
So was that back like during metal utensils on the planes and stuff?
Yeah, there were metal utensils some of those meals.
Yeah, because both of my folks worked for Northwest Airlines, so
Northwest was a big one.
Once they discontinued those, like I have up at my cabin, I have like old Northwest Airlines dishes and stuff like that. I still
have a couple of pilot wings somewhere that
nice.
I was given.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you started reading those in early Marvels, and so what did you stick with as you were growing up and started having, allowance or whatever, your own money? What comics were you continuing to buy? Well, I really got into the Green Lantern, the Hal Jordan Green Lantern. I was going to say, you used the definitive article there, the Green Lantern. See, when I think definitive article like the Green Lantern, in my head, that's got to be Alan Scott, because that's back during the Golden Age when you referred to heroes as the Batman. Yeah, I kind of agree where it's like the Green Lantern is Alan Scott, whereas Green Lantern is Hal Jordan. That's going to be its own episode. We talked about this briefly last week. If anyone was listening last week, and I was talking to Beej about just comics in general and mentioned favorite Green Lanterns, and he said Kyle Rayner, and I agreed with him and said I have a friend I argue with a lot over that. That is this friend. That is me. Because he holds very true to Hal Jordan. But now, have you read any of the, like, New 52, any of the more recent Green Lantern stuff? I have not. I haven't read a lot of comics since the rebirth of the Green Lantern Corps. I read some of that early stuff, but it's when they did the Spectrum, the Emotional
Emerald
Spectrum
Knights or whatever.
Yeah.
That I didn't read. I read pieces of that here and there, but that's about where I fell out with like regular reading.
So when you're talking Green Lantern stuff, you definitely are talking like the pre
90s to late 2000s.
Which was Kyle Rayner though. That whole thing was
unfortunately.
Okay, so you read it but didn't enjoy it as much.
Yeah, when I was buying comics, it was because I was a caddy, and what did I want to do with my money when I was 13 to 16 to 18? Wasted on comic books and collectible card games like Star Wars and Star Trek.
Yeah, well, I mean...
But I was buying Green Lantern because it was just about the time of the death of Hal Jordan and the whole 0 Hour event.
Yeah.
And then it was that I was buying the Kyle Rayner stuff, and I read that for a few years. I just was kind of like waiting for it to really kind of find its ground and really get going, and it just never did that for me. And it...
Yeah, the series, I loved it, but the series very much stayed almost, if not episodic, then it was very much this guy who didn't really know what he was doing, kind of finding his way, so there was no launching into these bigger stories until they did eventually much later.
Yes, I was excited when he became more of like the Ion character.
Okay.
And became a bit more competent and like understanding his role.
Sure.
When he was just kind of this aimless guy who was given this thing,
which was very 90s.
Yeah,
like the 90s were full of those sorts of characters. Yeah.
But for me, again, it's a comic book, a hero. I want to see them competently fighting crime and evil, and and there was some of that in those Green Lanterns. But Hal Jordan to me was the definitive champion of the Green Lantern Corps. So
okay.
But I was also reading Savage Dragon back in those days.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
I've also bought quite a few like small independent comics. Arsenic Lullaby being my very favorite. That's a local printing in the Midwest, so it's not something that a lot of people will have heard of or been exposed to. But they're really great, really dark comedy. Not necessarily things that we can talk too in-depthly on a family-friendly podcast.
Yeah.
But if you sort of like the darker element of jokes in society, this is definitely the kind of book you'd like.
Cool. Well, so now we know a little bit about you. I'd love to go into it further, but I want to make sure that I get through other stuff first. We'll probably return to that. Hey, kids, if you like Liam, send us a message and we'll have him back. It's not even a thing. I'm going to have him back on. It's Liam. He's one of my comic book buddies. All right, so let's dig into news. And Liam, I know you're not super big on current comic books. You still sort of dig into the old trades and stuff. But if you have opinions, whatever, color commentary, feel free to chime in.
All right.
So first, over at Boom Studios, and they currently do other licensed comic books, things like Power Rangers and stuff, have recently entered into an agreement to do a series of comics based on WWE wrestling comics. And here's sort of we don't know which comics they're making, we don't know what titles, we don't know when they're releasing. They've just said that, they have agreed to make those comics for them. And then there was like one John Cena image or whatever. The interesting thing is the language they used was the WWE Universe. Now, I don't know if that's just because everybody has a universe now. It must be its own universe, the MC universe, the DC Comics universe. So I don't know what that means to call it a universe, but I imagine at the very least there's going to be a couple titles. So if you're a wrestling fan, I am not. Like, my wrestling fandom began and ended with the NES WrestleMania game.
Mine ended when my father told me that it was all fake when I was in second grade. And
just kind of crushed you?
Done. Yeah. I was a Hulk maniac, though. I was a little Hulkster, man.
Nice. Brother.
Oh, yeah, brother.
So, but that's out. If you're a wrestling fan, you have comics to look forward to.
I have to say, though, that finally the body proportions and the spandex will fit in with the theme of what they're doing. If it's a comic book, on television, it's garish and oily but no, not a wrestling fan now, but it would make more sense as a comic book anyway. More episodic. The storylines could be
very true. I wonder if they'll do all that sort of behind the scenes whatever things that randomly
people
happen.
Rush in behind the panels of the comic book to beat up the writer and the editor of the comics,
like the old John Byrne She-Hulk run where she would actually try and climb out of the comic to beat him up. Yeah. So moving on, whole bunch of Marvel news. One of them being the big thing, which I think will end up being our topic of the week for this week. But we're going to start with something I personally enjoy, the Great Lakes Avengers. Did I ever loan you that trade?
I don't think so.
The GLA disassembled. So they're a group of Avengers from the Great Lakes area who just decided to call themselves Avengers. They are terrible heroes. One of them is a character named Immortal Man, where literally his only power is he can't die.
Oh, I know Immortal Man from the 1 million.
Nope, that's Resurrection Man.
Oh, that is
Resurrection Man, every time he dies, comes back with a new set of superpowers. Immortal Man simply can't die, and he learned this by trying to kill himself over and over again, and finding. So he's just this always depressed character who doesn't have any other superpowers. So he just decided he'd be a superhero and run in to stop a bank robbery, get shot by the robbers, and they just step over him and leave, and then he'd get back up and be like, I'm a superhero, I helped.
Maybe what he really needs is to just have a really good day with Andy McDowell.
See, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
it's these kind of characters where these really
the mayor
fail.
from choking on some steak.
That'd do it.
Fix a few flat tires.
Learn how to play piano really well.
Oh, it would be beautiful. Beautiful day.
So previously the GLA had Squirrel Girl. Not originally. The group was introduced in a West Coast Avengers comic in the 70s. But they did this GLA disassembled thing where Squirrel Girl was one of their members, but now she's sort of blown up in her own comic book. So she's not a part of the series right now, my understanding in the comic. We'll actually get to that because she's a member of another new team. So the cover that they showed was the original 4 members, and then they're carrying a cardboard cutout of Squirrel Girl that says pictures with the team $1, just so she could be there in images. So I'm hoping for a really fun, stupid comic. I liked GLA. I want to say it was misassembled instead of disassembled. I'd have to go up and look at the bookcase to check it. And I'll have to loan that to you. It's just a really dumb, fun comic book.
So it's not trying to take itself super seriously.
No, and it never was supposed to be.
Good.
It was what the Mystery Men were originally in the original comic, which could be its total whole thing because the movie is such a departure from them in the comic.
The Flaming Carrot isn't even mentioned.
Exactly. So, but yes, they're always supposed to be this team that is terrible because they're based out of Milwaukee or something in the comic. And I think in this one they're going to be based out of Detroit. But one of many new group books that are coming in the fall as part of this whole Marvel Now thing. The other one is we're getting a new Champions book, except this one is totally different team, totally different purpose. It's what Beej and I were sort of talking about last week, where they had teasers that showed Miles Morales, Nova, and Miss Marvel burning their Avengers cards and saying, we quit. And what we're finding out now is they're going to be part of a new team where it's going to be those 3, the young version of Cyclops from the past. They did a whole thing where the original X-Men were brought to the future. So it's the young version of Cyclops, Nova, Miss Marvel, the Miles Morales Spider-Man, the totally awesome Hulk, which is Amadeus Cho right now is the Hulk, and then Vision, who is the android daughter of the Vision. Because right now the Vision comic book is him trying to have a family life with a whole android family. My understanding is it's pretty entertaining. I haven't read it yet. But that character, and so it's written by Mark Waid, who has a really good track record of writing both just good comics, things like Kingdom Come, and that sort of thing, as well as really Flash, as well as really fun comics. My understanding is his Daredevil run was just very, very fun. It was a very enjoyable take on the character that everybody was singing the praises of. So another new book. Third new team we're getting in the fall is another Avengers team called U.S. Avengers. So the idea here is they're an officially government-sanctioned Avengers team.
Not the U.S. Avengers?
Yeah, but that's what did I say?
USA Avengers?
Oh, U.S. Avengers. It's the way it's written, yes.
Yeah.
U.S. Avengers.
It's terrible.
I know. So apparently in the Marvel Comics right now, AIM, which was Advanced Idea Mechanics, the people who I believe initially created the Cosmic Cube and made MODOK, has now been changed for... I know. Let's not get... There's a whole MODOK thing, and I didn't put it in my news thing. In the Gwenpool comic, which is the alternate reality Gwen Stacy as Deadpool thing, she's fighting a villain. Oh, it's not called MODOK. It has a different name, but it's totally Donald Trump as MODOK. So big head, little hands. So you can find that as well. I just saw that on Twitter, so I don't remember what they call him. But so AIM now stands for American Intelligence Mechanics, so it's been taken over by the U.S. government. And so the person in charge is...
Thanks, Obama.
So the person in charge is Sunspot, the former New Mutant.
Yep.
And so this team is going to be Sunspot, and he's bringing Cannonball along. And then Squirrel Girl, Pod. I don't know who Pod is. It is not Podrick from Game of Thrones. Somebody else named Pod.
Which would be a wonderful crossover.
Yes. Red Hulk. So General Thunderbolt Ross, who's the Red Hulk. And then a new Iron Patriot. So it's a girl in the Iron Patriot armor, and it's like almost manga style, like big Iron Patriot armor. And the super scientist, Dr. Tony Ho. I also don't know this character, so I feel kind of bad. And then a time-traveling version of Captain America from the future, who is a female Captain America and is the daughter of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage.
Okay.
I don't know if that's spoilers for any upcoming Luke Cage or Jessica Jones Netflix show stuff, but in the comic books, they have a child together and they're married. So that is the U.S. Avengers. So you have 3 new teams to look forward to. I think out of those, the one that excites me the most is the Great Lakes Avengers. They say it's an ongoing. I don't know about that. I would just love a new GLA.
It'll be ongoing for like
10
11 issues, and then
they'll get right to the point where they would get an annual, and then they won't get an annual.
Yeah.
So it'll be
maybe 11. If it was a Frank Miller, it would get like 12 issues, be really good and gritty, and then just fall off.
Yeah. So it'll have enough for maybe 1 or 2 trades, and then maybe they'll get rolled into another book or an event comic where they can die again or something. But you have that, and then the big the big Marvel news is Iron Man, and it was announced today, the day I'm recording this, which is the 6th, and it is that this fall, as part of Marvel Now, there's going to be a new Iron Man, or at least a new character heading up Iron Man, and it is going to be a 15-year-old black girl, and naturally that has sent the internet into all sorts of fits, and the book is still being written by Brian Michael Bendis, so he's putting out his response. And of course, he's had experience with this before because he created Miles Morales. And everybody's like, a black Hispanic Spider-Man? How dare you?
It makes more sense, though. I mean, the character of Peter Parker, it was like a high school teenager who, was bitten. So a young Spider-Man still skews and makes a lot of sense. A young character being Iron Man doesn't make as much sense to me personally.
No, but I mean, there was Iron Man's Armored Adventures. If you recall this, a cartoon that lasted for, I think, did it do 2 seasons?
I think so, and the Mandarin was one of his best villains.
It was like a boy Iron Man or a teenage Tony Stark as Iron Man. I think I saw 1 episode of that.
Yep.
So,
and it was like Young Justice style sort of animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like this is new, and it's certainly not new for somebody else to step into the Iron Man armor. That's been done up-teen times.
Yeah.
But I think if you're cool with it, we'll make that our topic of the week, because I got all sorts of other information on this.
I'm cool with it.
Perfect. So I know that's a lot of Marvel news. I have one piece of DC news, and I think you're going to like this. I don't know if you recall, but in 2015, DC Comics teamed up with KFC to do a comic about introducing the Colonel to not only the DC universe, but the multiverse.
I do remember hearing
So
that.
last year it was called KFC Colonel of Two Worlds, and it's where the Colonel fights his evil counterpart from Earth 3.
So is it Norm Macdonald fighting Daryl Hammond? Or is it...
I don't know.
Jim Gaffigan?
Yeah. I don't know. See, that would make sense if they rolled that into the commercials.
It would.
But so that was last year.
Who wouldn't love to see that?
I would.
And it would make sense that they keep changing. There can be only one. It'd be like a Highlander, KFC, DC multiverse event. And that's what they love, is multiverse events.
It is. So here's what's happening this year. We are getting a new one called KFC Colonel Core.
Ooh.
So he is pulling together...
Is there an N at the end that's silent?
No, it's Core as in CORPS, like Green Lantern Corps. So they're bringing a number of Colonels throughout the DC multiverse. And I want to say it's something like 11 of them, because it's the plot... Well, look, so the villain is, again, the evil, which is Colonel Sunder, not Sanders. Ooh. It's Colonel Sunder is the evil colonel from Earth 3. And so there's more plot. I don't really care. Since you're here, I was just going to, if I was doing this on my own, I wasn't going to talk about it. It's something like everybody forgets the 11 herbs and spices or something.
Oh, no.
So they need to, which are secret. So it's not like they can actually tell us what they are in the comic.
Yeah, but they have that in a vault somewhere.
Yeah.
But if, say, for instance, an atomic bomb went off in Kentucky or whatever and blew up that vault, it'd be gone.
Right.
because nobody knows the full recipe.
Except, apparently, I'm guessing, the Colonel Core. So here's the thing.
They've got to protect it.
It's out there. It's free. You can read this for free right now. It's on Comixology. So I'm going to include a link in the show notes. I'm not going to tell you to read it. I'm not going to suggest that you read it. But it's out. It's a thing, and it's out there. Oddly enough, it actually has a decent rating on Comixology right now.
What color of the spectrum would they fill? Would it be like a gravy brown?
As a core?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what emotion would brown be? Well,
regret. What color is regret? Because I'm feeling a sickly green would work well for regret.
But we have green as willpower, so it needs to fit in
with speckles of brown.
But I say you have like the spectrum, right, which starts on white, ends on black, and then they have the actual colors of the rainbow in between, and then it have to be like off to the side, like the one no one talks about is KFC brown, which is just So it's out there. You could read it. Feel free. So
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna click that link.
So that is our news. I'm gonna do my stupid voice thing and then move into reviews, which actually I'm recording at a later date. So Liam will sadly not be able to weigh in on the reviews.
They're all wonderful.
So now that I have read all of this week's comics, here's my little insert piece. So I apologize. It'll probably sound a little different. Here's my little insert piece of reviews for this week. So first we have Green Lanterns #2. This book is definitely starting to kind of figure out where it's going, get its legs under it. We're seeing more of the dynamic between Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz, where Jessica is very much still dealing with her anxiety related to being a Green Lantern. She can't summon the will to make a construct yet. And then Simon Baz is still running in and is willing to throw individuals to the side in lieu of the bigger picture and the larger threat. For the most part, I'm enjoying it. I'm excited for next week when we get Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps to sort of round out that picture of what the Green Lantern comics are going to be moving forward. But it does feel like this is very much going to be its own side thing where they're going to stay on Earth, which is very reminiscent of the 90s Kal Rayner run and sort of that idea that a lot of these post-New 52 books, these DC Rebirths, comics are sort of moving back to a 90s almost feel. Paper Girls #7. Still enjoying this book. The idea of these girls being pulled from 1988 to 2016 and then running into the adult version of one of them. Just still seeing them react to, them being like, oh, holy cow, there's might be a female president coming up because they see a Vote Hillary sign. And, just sort of the reaction. And then the big spoiler for this one, spoilers, 3, 2, and 1. They find out that one of these girls who's pulled from 88 dies in 92 from leukemia. So that was kind of the big twist on this one, as well as more aliens and things sort of showing up here in 2016. So as with a lot of Brian K. Vaughan books, we still don't really know what the ongoing plot is supposed to be. We don't really know what the central struggle is, if it's just these girls getting back home, and then everything else that's happening around that seems to be the plot, but you never really know because he's the kind of person that'll write a book that'll just totally pull the rug out from under you and send you in a completely different direction. So I'm in for the ride. Walking Dead 156. This was a really solid issue of The Walking Dead. It really gave us a point to push forward into new stories. Negan is now part of the Whispers, or he's trying to be part of the Whispers, so we get a book that covers a period of time of him trying to adjust to the way they do things, and obviously he fails miserably because he doesn't share their viewpoints on a lot of things. You almost like Negan. I don't want to say, like, he's a bad dude. He's a horrible person. But he has this thing where he's willing to protect other people that are weaker than him, which is totally against the Whisperer's viewpoint of only the strong survive. And then the ending of this book, I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to say anything. But I will say it's a Game of Thrones level game-changing thing that happens. So clearly this book is shaping what's going to come in the future. So it was a really good read. If you are reading the Walking Dead comics, obviously you're going to pick it up anyway. So there's no use in me suggesting to or to not read it. Moving on, we have Moon Knight #4. This is part 4 of 5 in the Welcome to New Egypt arc. It's still really trippy. We still don't know what's going on. We still don't know if the things that our main group of friends here, Moon Knight and Frenchie and Marlene, we don't know if they're all sharing a delusion in seeing New York as being covered by pyramids and sand, because they run into like a cop who's saying, hey, you're in the middle of a huge downpour, you need to get out of this rain, and to them, they're seeing sand and not realizing it, and then, don't know who they can trust. It's still a really interesting read. I look forward to the last book in this arc so that I know, if this is going to be really something worthwhile going forward, if it's setting something else up, or if this is just going to be a giant head trip moving forward. Silver Surfer number 5. Again, I say it all the time, this is just a really fun book. In this one, Surfer has recently saved the Earth and its culture from sort of this, not even terraforming, this thing that would turn the Earth and its culture into a different planet's culture. And it was the Silver Surfer's home planet of Zen-La. So he had to stop them, and in doing so, erased all of his home's culture. So it was things like when what he calls silvers down, which is he reduces, sucks inside of himself the silver that covers his body. He's now only wearing plain white clothing because there is no longer fashion or culture from his planet. So now, he needed to find new clothes, which of course has ridiculous results. And then he, everybody in Earth loves him. He becomes the first official citizen of Earth because every nation on the planet awards him citizenship for sacrificing his own culture to save theirs. They get tickets. Beej and Void are going to like this. He gets tickets to Hamilton. They don't say it's Hamilton, obviously, but it's clearly Hamilton. And Dawn, who's his sort of companion, is, totally elated and can't believe that they found tickets to Hamilton, even though, the Silver Surfer's like, well, I did sort of save your planet. He's like, I know, but I still can't believe we managed to get tickets. So fun little nod to Hamilton there. There's just lots of nice little moments. This comic in particular, Silver Surfer, has all these great little warm moments. This one is certainly no exception from, him starting to go emo again and his board just smacks him in the head to basically tell him, hey, dummy, you have friends, stop being so sad. And there's a moment where he talks to a kid about why there aren't any Fantastic Four comics being made anymore. Just these neat little moments that this book is just full of. So I can't suggest it highly enough. I would go back and start reading it from the beginning, pick up a trade, hit up your library, because it's worth your time. And then there are 2 books that I kind of flipped through, glanced at, but didn't read all the way. And I said that's what was going to happen, and it certainly was. So Vote Loki number 2. It looks okay. I really think in the end, it's going to be more about what the fallout of this book is, if there's actual lasting impact, if he gets voted president or something silly, rather than the book itself. But it looked like it had to do with there being a religion that's popping up and people are caught like trying to sacrifice a goat to Loki. And he's sort of like, yeah, I never said I wasn't a god, so you have freedom of religion. You're welcome to join mine. So being just, that suave dude that Loki is. And then the other one that I just kind of flipped through was the Doctor Strange movie prelude. I decided not to pick it up just because it's a movie prelude comic, and historically they're terrible. It looks like it doesn't have Doctor Strange in it at all, obviously, because the movie itself is going to be an origin story. But it looks like it's sort of setting up the Sanctum Sanctorum, which is Doctor Strange's headquarters in New York. And it features Wong, so I think it's going to kind of tell some of his story. And there was some sort of fight in there with a group of other sorcerers or magic users. And then I saw an article saying that this also helps set up the villain for the book, as he is one of these other sorcerers that team up with Wong in order to stop somebody. And then finally, I finished reading Chase. I know this might not be important to anybody else, but I picked it up and I kept saying I was going to do it. So it's important to me that I did. I brought it with me over the 4th. It's good. I really like it. It very much feels like a 90s book, or that, late 90s, early 2000s, really where DC was at that time. The art is great. It's totally a predecessor to what would come in Batwoman, where J.H. Williams III really sort of lets loose and gets much more creative in his layouts and his design. But there's still plenty of that here. It tells a good story. It introduces a very good ground level sort of character. I think it would be interesting to see more of this character. Obviously, I know, she's dotted throughout the DC universe, but I think it would have been neat if that series had continued. But it felt very much like a predecessor, like I said, art-wise to Batwoman, and in story to Gotham Central. And I don't remember if those books coexisted, so if they did, I apologize. But that kind of story where we get that, again, ground level, like here are these normal people, and you find out she does kind of have powers, but that there are these normal people who are trying to navigate through a world with superheroes and superhumans, and their job is to help protect normal people, and what it's like being thrown into that situation. Or in this case, what it's like to be part of the DEO, and your job is to spy on super people and, try and find their secret identities and that sort of thing. It is not a traditional comic book read, but if you want something that's a little, I guess just keep using the term ground level, kind of storytelling, then I would definitely suggest going out and picking up the Chase trade. Moving on, Liam's not here for this bit because I recorded it the next day. Going back to the part with Liam. Hey, we only do noises with our mouth. Only mouth noises. Mouth noises.
That was my mouth.
Your mouth sounds an awful like finger snapping. Good. You're good.
I'm dexterous.
You're good. So, chicka, I guess. Anyway, so this one, because Liam can be here for this one, is the Pull List in the Archive. So here are the comics that I'm going to read next week, and then I'm going to let you make a suggestion as far as things people can go back and read. It doesn't need to be a favorite. It just needs to be something you think people would dig. So for next week is Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps Rebirth. So this is the second of 2 Green Lantern books, and I don't think we're getting any others. I don't think Red Lanterns is ending, Sinestro is done, so I think we're going back to just these 2. So they're getting the Rebirth issue. Wonder Woman number 2, I think, going to stick it out at least through the first story arc because I love Greg Rucka so much, and he's a wonderful writer. So I said I didn't know because it's Wonder Woman. I've never been big on Wonder Woman solo stuff. And Greg Rucka has written that before in the past, so that might be something I'll go see if they have it.
I love Greg Rucka. I'd be willing to read anything he does.
So his Wonder Woman stuff isn't bad. And then that's it as far as new comic books. There's some trades. One I'm definitely picking up is Scarlet Volume 1. They're finally putting the whole thing in trade. There was a hardcover a while ago. This is the Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev comic that I have talked about on the podcast in the past that I love so very, very much. And then they're also doing a Volume 1 of DC's Elseworlds, of Justice League Elseworlds stories. So I talked about this last week as well that I dig. Elseworlds they don't really do them anymore, which is a shame.
It is. Those were some wonderful
because they were always one and done. It would be 1 or 2, maybe if there were 2, they'd be small trades or something that told a whole story of a completely different universe where just 1 or 2 things are tweaked or everything is tweaked.
Yeah.
Everything is totally different. So it's Superman growing up in Russia, or it's a world with no Superman, which are the 2 that I talked about, Red Sun and Justice League.
Wayne's parents lived, and he just became a spoiled brat.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the sort of Elseworld stuff. So several of these that are based on the Justice League are being included in one single trade, which means that these were ones that were probably small trades originally on their own. So it's like $35 or something, but totally worth it for me because my grab-and-go comics off my shelf are usually Elseworlds because I'm not picking up something in the middle of a run.
Yeah, easy to pick up and put down.
Right. So that's coming out. As far as things I'm still reading through, I'm still slowly working my way through Sin City. I have 2 more volumes to go. And then
I think that's about where I petered out in my Sin City read-through also.
It was about volume 5?
Yeah, it started to go down in quality a little bit, but it was still fun.
Okay.
And there was elements from the movie that weren't in the first 5 volumes. It's kind of one of those things.
I feel like some of that is in the second movie, which is now on Netflix. So I get to actually see that now, which I'm excited for. And then Void suggested Wayward to me via Twitter. So I've never read it. I don't really know what it's about. I'm sure he might have said something at some point.
Well, carry on, my wayward son.
Exactly. So I'm going to go see if they have those at the library or something, which was going to be our topic of the week, but we have a different one instead, so that'll have to wait. But proper archives stuff. So archives is where I suggest a comic that I have in a trade or something that I know can be picked up in a trade, like Rat Queens or whatever, that
Which
I can...
is great.
Thank you. See, and that's the whole thing.
I have volume 1. I need to read more because I only had the volume 1.
You will leave today with volumes 2 and 3. I have them on my shelf.
Thumbs up.
Have to give them back to me, but...
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have your the cop one.
Axe Cop.
Axe Cop. I found that.
Cool. Which you said you...
I thought I had returned it to.
Yeah, but which you said you kind of liked, but not as much.
A few bits and pieces. Read a little bit, put it down. Read a little bit, put it down. But eventually it becomes too much of the same
too weird
randomness.
Yeah.
But I did get a few very genuine laughs out of it.
Because the point of Axe Cop is it's a 20-something, now I guess he's in his 30s-year-old artist who would play with his...
5-year-old.
5-year-old, very much younger brother, and he would create this character of Axe Cop by just reaching in the toy box and pulling out an axe and be like, we're going to play cops, you're Axe Cop. And then he'd go and he'd like dig through the box and come out with the flute and be like, I'm Flute Cop. And so...
And then Dino Cop. And
exactly.
Then Hamburger Cop and all sorts of
Yeah. Avocado Soldier.
Yep, Avocado Soldier.
So the idea being he would take these play sessions and remember them as best he could and just turn them into a comic book. So it's the craziness of like, and then he eats an apple, which is poison, but it doesn't poison him. It turns his hands into apples, which fire explosive poison apples. And then he poisons you and has a secret move or a secret attack.
Mm-hmm. Everybody and then he's bitten by something and then turns into either that or a hybrid of it. Or,
yes. Yeah. So it is the wackiest, craziest book because it's written by a 5-year-old and it reads like it. So
the drawings are fun though.
Yes.
He's a talented artist for that style of artist.
So, and they got a season of a cartoon on Fox even.
And I feel like there was a show, Rick and Morty. There was an episode where they were talking about TV shows from all across the dimensions, and one of them was about two brothers, and it had that insane rambling, add this to that, and on top of this, now they're also doing that sort of thing, and the artwork was very similar to the Axe Cop artwork, which made me think of it.
Nice. So that's not your suggestion.
No.
So what would be your actual suggestion for something to read? What do you have on your shelf that's sort of an evergreen read that somebody else can go find and pick up?
An easy one would be The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 1.
Okay.
There's Volume 2 and The Black Dossier after that. And I think that there's another volume that they've added after that, but I'm not familiar with that.
I want to say it's like League and like 1602 is the Marvel series, but it was something like that, where it was like the 1800s or the 1900s, or it was... Yeah, it was a date on it, I think.
Yeah, I think you're very right about that.
Yeah,
but yeah, the first volume of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore is a wonderful read. Lots of literary references, most of which I didn't immediately pick up, and then had to go back and read things to figure out where the references had come from.
Which is very cool because it means that you actually have to then go and familiarize yourself with that classic literature. British literature.
Yeah, things that people actually would want to talk about and not just comic books that geeks like ourselves would enjoy talking about.
Cool. And so I assume it's probably important to note as well that it has nothing to do with the movie.
Nothing at all.
The movie is...
in character name only.
Yeah, they take the concept.
Yeah, and they add a Tom Sawyer character.
Because you need an American.
Terrible.
Because isn't that also sort of doesn't Penny Dreadful kind of do that as well, though? Take the classic horror characters?
I think you're right about that.
Also, 2 seasons now on Netflix. I am super pumped to watch that. I've heard such great things about the show, and I don't have whatever cable channel it's on. I don't actually know what cable channel it's on.
Yeah, I don't cable.
But very much looking forward to watching that. That is on my watch list. Okay, cool. So that is the archives. Bow. Boop ba-doo. Bow, bow, ba-doo, ba-doo. Bow. Boop ba-doo. Ba-da-ba-ba-doo, topic of the week. I don't know what was that?
That's a sound that my grandmother used to make while poking me in the belly.
Fair enough. So the big news that hit today was a female Iron Man that is coming this fall. This really isn't anything new, and we'll get into that, but let me fill you in on all the details that I have here. So new Iron Man, debuting after what's going on right now in the comics, which is Civil War 2. Has nothing to do with the original Civil War, really.
Electric Boogaloo?
It's Electric Boogaloo. It's just there because there was a Civil War movie, so they had to name their event something. So it is a 15-year-old black girl named Riri Williams. Riri, R-I-R-I, Williams. So I'm guessing...
I'm not sure Riri is appropriate for calling someone.
Rai? I don't know. That's how it's spelled.
Riri?
Yeah. So that's,
like Riri.
So that's how it's spelled.
It's like Aurora.
Yes.
Too many R's and too many vowels.
People will have issues.
Yeah.
So the character was introduced already a while ago in the current Invincible Iron Man run by Brian Michael Bendis. So she is a prodigy, mechanical engineering, as you will, prodigy, who is at 15 a student at MIT and has already built her version of the Iron Man armor or some sort of armor for herself. And I believe she is the character then. There's another Marvel Now teaser that sort of shows these 2 separate teams. It's like a big wide poster. And she is standing in front, I think, on the right side on that team. I believe that's this character because it's somebody in sort of a Iron Man-like armor with no helmet on. like I said, created by Brian Michael Bendis, so he's no stranger to this sort of backlash since he created the Black Hispanic Miles Morales Spider-Man over in the Ultimate run, who is now in the regular 616.
And who I would have loved to see in the next Spider-Man movie.
Oh, that was a lot of people. Yeah. A lot of people wanted to see that. Though, a story we did a while ago is that there's going to be an animated Spider-Man movie, and I don't know if they've said it's going to be Peter Parker yet.
Okay.
So they might actually be doing an animated.
Let's keep that
Miles
window
Morales.
open.
Yeah.
You know, Miles Morales.
Just on Twitter, notes on Twitter that Brian Michael Bendis has made in interviews has said that the fact that that Tony Stark isn't going to necessarily be in the Iron Man armor anymore, necessarily, doesn't mean that we know how Civil War II is going to end. And also in a tweet he said that, I'm going to quote this here, that Tony's fate, Riri's true origin, name, backstory, and armor design has yet to be revealed, so keep guessing but don't assume anything. So it's possible she's not going to be called Iron Man. It's possible that Riri or Rai isn't actually her name. We don't know her backstory. We don't know her origin. All we know is that she's a student at MIT and she's sort of a prodigy and has made her own sort of version of Iron Man armor. So, I guess thoughts right off the bat.
Okay. Go for it, Marvel.
Yeah.
It's nice to see changes to longtime characters. I'm interested to see if it's going to be Iron Man, Iron Woman, or if they go with a new moniker for the new character.
Right. Like they did when Pepper Potts got her own Iron Man armor and she was called Rescue.
Yeah. That would make a bit more sense since the character's name is Iron Man, so you'd have to presumably
But the comic,
make
I think, is still going to
to
be Invincible Iron Man moving forward.
Okay.
So the image shows her in sort of a cut-off t-shirt with like the arc reactor looking symbol on the chest, but just like the glow, so just like a white symbol, and like exercise pants. And then standing next to her is sort of a hologram of Tony Stark, which I guess is sort of the way it's working right now, where his, I think, operating system or whatever exists sort of as a hologram in the books. I think. I don't read it. I want to, but I feel if I went back, I'd probably start way back with like Extremis, which I heard was really good and the basis of some of the movies.
I admit I've never read an Iron Man comic.
Oh, I used to read it. I had a couple random comics back from like the 90s where he had that very clunky design, like the old Marvel Superheroes toys, where you could click on the like wrist cuffs and the giant boots, because it's like, it's a dude with jet boots. He's got big clunky jet boots.
Yep, that's the familiarity I have with the Avengers as well, back when Hank Pym was the Yellow Jacket, and he was going through a messy divorce with Sue Pym, the Wasp.
That was Janet Van Dyne.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So you're thinking Susan, that's Sue Storm, that's
yes,
the Invisible Woman.
Yes. And that was the last I read of the Avengers.
So it didn't really pique your interest. But bringing up Hank Pym in Yellow Jacket is an interesting choice, or an interesting thing to talk about, because Hank Pym was so many different characters over the years. And so that's the thing why, yes, there's outrage, because I read a lot of comments that were not very nice, that were responding to, all the different Twitter announcements, because there was Marvel's announcement, then Time did one, I think Rolling Stone did one, Brian Michael Bendis himself did one, and there's all these comments of like, no, we need the real Iron Man. And you're like, you don't understand how many different Iron Man iterations there's been. I mean, the famous probably being James Rhodes, who went on to become War Machine, who took over as Iron Man.
He was the original.
But it's like, the number of times superheroes have somebody else replace them is insane. So, and I just created a little...
back in the 90s, they didn't even bother to make a deal of it. It was just like,
they do it, and then they would spin off, like, and become their own character, like, the new Captain America became U.S. Agent.
Even, regrettably, Azrael being Batman.
Yes, exactly. And then splitting off and becoming Azrael. That sort of thing.
And then even years later, he's still part of the Bat family and would show up every once in a while for the big things.
Right, and they... would revamp his origin and stuff. As other things. So I feel like most of the outrage are from probably fans of the movies. Perhaps. Who now love... Because nobody loved Iron Man before the movies except hardcore...
I do love Iron Man.
Iron Man and Avengers fans, though. Because I used to watch the cartoon as a kid, where he had the mullet and that had that great Iron Man, that great theme song, and it had that little CG scene where it would animate him putting on the armor. It was only like one CG shot or something, wasn't it? Where he like lifted the helmet up off the ground with like his gloves using like magnets and then put it on. And that was it for the whole show was one CG
and
scene they used in every episode.
Like Voltron and every other cartoon where they just recycle that same
animation
scene every time.
So, and I have the Iron Man toys on my shelf from that show because they're awesome. But I feel like the movie, Iron Man movie, was really what boosted everybody's attention to the character. And then, so I think comic fans are like, this is just what happens. They can be upset, I feel, because there's so much of this going on lately. There have been so many reboots, new characters, swapped people in the lead of books in order to bolster sales.
Like they're doing a lot of it all at once just to like force it down.
Because you had Miles Morales, but that was years ago.
Yeah.
But it is true that in the last year I made a little list that currently, for people who are just fans of the movies, if you really want to get upset, let me read you this list. Because if you think Iron Man becoming a teenage black girl is bad, so right now Captain America is back. Steve Rogers is back, but he's like an evil Hydra agent going on now in the comics. So our other Captain America, who actually has the shield, one of many Captain Americas, by the way. We've had different Captain Americas for years. It's a regular thing. Somebody else takes over.
Yep. U.S. agent.
U.S. agent. Bucky was Captain America for a while. The character of Jack Flag, I want to say, used to be, maybe he was a Bucky. Because there were the storyline where there were these different Captain Americas in the 50s and 60s before he got unfrozen by the Avengers, that there were other Captain Americas that took his place. But point being, current Captain America, Sam Wilson, the Falcon, became the Captain America. So, or Captain Falcon, as we like to call him, because then we can go Falcon Punch every time he punches somebody. But, so we have a black Captain America right now. Thor is currently a woman. Jane Foster is the new Thor. And that was a big one. That was a big stinker because anybody can be a Captain America, but Thor is Thor's name.
Yeah.
So having somebody else say, I'm Thor, and it's a woman, you're like, but that's like saying, I'm Dave.
Yeah.
And so
Thor is a character from like a Nordic mythology,
right,
not just the Marvel
So now he's calling himself the Odin son because he's not worthy to pick up the hammer. He's not worthy to pick up Mjolnir. Meow, meow.
Meow, meow.
So there's a female Thor, which, by the way, also been other Thors in the past, because there was Eric Masterson, who eventually became Thunderstrike, because, again, you introduce him...
With the beard. I always loved the beard.
You introduce him, and then they spin off into their own character.
I think he had a mullet with a flat top at some point, and that was
kind of... It was a ponytail.
Yeah, that's what it was.
He had the ponytail and the beard, but then he was the bearded Thor.
Yeah.
And he wore, like, a face
Thor
mask
definitely
on
have
the
a
helmet.
beard.
Yeah.
Definitely have a beard.
He's a Viking. It makes sense.
You can probably hear my beard over the airwaves right now.
Just ruffle it a little.
It's growing a little.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's nice. I can hear that. Yeah. So there's a female Thor. The Hulk is a Korean American named Amadeus Cho. Totally American. Like, he's born in the United States and stuff. But the whole point is you have a character who is not a white dude in purple pants playing as
Invincible
not playing,
purple
but
pants.
Invincible purple pants as the Hulk. So Bruce Banner is still around.
Unstable molecules.
But Amadeus Cho is now the, what do they call him? The totally awesome Hulk.
Totally awesome, totally super fun, amazing Hulk.
That's right.
Okay.
So we have a different person as the Hulk. Spider-Man, obviously. We have Peter Parker around, but we now have Miles Morales in the 616 universe, and he is the main character of the book titled Spider-Man.
And I'm fine with anything they want to do there, as long as there's no more clones.
Well, there was, because Kane became the Scarlet Spider for a while, and he was based. They based him out of like
Scarlet
Texas,
Spider is fine.
But the whole point of the Scarlet Spider was it was a clone, though. It was Ben Reilly.
Yeah, but then it was, who did they really kill? And then it was one of those...
You're not a Clone Saga fan.
No. I've also never really been a Spider-Man fan, admittedly.
So, speaking of clones, then, Wolverine. The current Wolverine is the clone X-23.
Yep.
Is the current Wolverine.
Isn't Old Man Logan in the mix there, too?
Yes, and now the Old Man Logan from that alternate future after the Secret Wars thing got pulled in. So the normal Wolverine is considered dead, or finger quotes, I guess, dead.
Yeah, I just read The Death of Wolverine, actually, just because that was a favorite character of mine when I was younger, and I felt like I owed it to him.
Did you like it? Quickly?
It was 3 issues. I read it real quick. It could have been done better, but it was fine.
Okay.
I already have read something on Reddit of somebody's opinion on how they could bring him back from this current. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like it's going to happen. And I'm sure they will, because it's Wolverine.
Yes. So right now there's an old Wolverine from a post-apocalyptic future who's around, but they're just calling him Logan, Old Man Logan. So currently X-23 has taken on the role and is calling herself Wolverine. So the book is like all new Wolverine or whatever. So Wolverine, female, and a clone. Star-Lord, for those who totally probably don't know, because the Guardians of the Galaxy book is so different with Venom and like the Thing and stuff on the team.
Yep.
Star-Lord is Kitty Pryde right now.
Okay. And Star-Lord is like it's like a title that's passed from one person to another.
But she's wearing a similar costume in that. She's got the red leather jacket. For her, it's a normal leather jacket, and like that face mask helmet
choice.
thing.
Who doesn't love a nice leather jacket?
But so we have that.
R.I.P. Michael Jackson.
So if you thought the one was bad, and this is the only thing you're hearing, Marvel has been doing this a lot. So that's why there are sort of those ideas that it might be a little heavy-handed, and they might be doing too much too fast, where it doesn't feel as organic. I'm sure within each storyline it is, but you have these writers being like, no, it was totally my idea. And so does that mean that each writer is just like looking over their buddy's shoulder and being like, oh, that's really cool, I want to do that? Or is it editorial saying, we really need to up diversity in our books, and so guess what? You have to do it. We don't care how. So then it has to become an organic part of the story.
And if it's really a two-way street, wouldn't it make sense to occasionally turn a character who is like the Phoenix into like a male character?
Well, I saw one comment on Twitter that I thought was sort of funny, not to be disrespectful, but he's like, the new Black Panther will be an albino from Iceland.
Tobias Funke?
Yes.
Yes, that is a book I will read. Marvel, if you give me that, I will read every drop of it.
David Cross as the Black Panther?
That would be so good.
So, thoughts on this, you personally? To me, I don't see it as a big deal because the real characters are always going to be around for marketing purposes.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to return as those characters. There's always going to be a
universe that is the characters we all loved and grew up with, and they're going to give us that every once in a while.
And it's kind of like, hey, if you really need Tony Stark as Iron Man, how many Iron Man comics have you read? Because chances are, not many. Yeah, chances are you're a fan
there's a few
of
trades
the movie,
you missed.
And that's it. So why don't you go back? If you need new Iron Man stories, like, it might not feel as timely when they pull out a giant cell phone that's, the size of a combat boot.
Yeah.
But, like, those stories exist.
Plus, decades. You might understand a bit more about whether the movies are good or not. Like, you could be a fan of Iron Man and watch Iron Man 3 and be like, yeah, I like the Mandarin, Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
But then if you go back and read some comic books, you'd understand just how far off base that character might be.
Right.
And there's also Easter eggs in most of these movies where it's things for the people who are really fans. So if you were to go back and read some of these old trades and such, you could very easily start appreciating movies you like in a new way.
Right. So is there legitimacy to the argument that they should just create original characters instead of bringing new characters in as Captain America, as Thor, in this case, as Iron Man?
I think there is some legitimacy to that because it's really just relying on the market saturation of a comic character's name to get interest in a new character. But then again, there have always been characters that they've brought in, like Marrow, or somebody who's like one of the new mutants that they're bringing into Xavier's Institute, who is of some ethnic minority or sexual orientation that didn't really get a lot of screen time in the comics, or maybe not always the best fan reception. So I can understand why you'd want to make an iconic character something else. But I think there should be, some new characters that they're introducing as opposed to just simply bringing out a new version of a character that we already like.
And as we spoke about, there was the 90s strategy where they come in as that character and then you split them off into a new character when the original returns.
Exactly. Because if you write the character well, it's not the name of the hero that is important. It's Gwen Stacy is an interesting character. I like her. She has a good character that bounces well off of other characters. She's got a good I can understand that. But she doesn't have to then be Spider Woman, man, whatever, in order to be popular. It's just the quality of the writing that'll shine through. So she could be whatever you want. Spider Stacy, that's great.
Right, exactly. So I think the argument's for, and it's just one of those things where you can have it as a fan and you can like it as the work and the art itself, but in the end it's also a business. And so doing it this way gives them the controversy that's happening right now.
It's about buzz.
It's about buzz and it's about sales in the end. So the artists write the stories, but the company has to sell it and has to get money in order to continue writing those stories. So even though really if it's under the Disney umbrella, they have the money.
Yeah,
But anyway,
yeah.
But it's the
Unless
idea
they're going to do John Carter too.
So the way they're doing it here means they're going to get the attention, they're going to get the controversy, which is going to stir up the fans, and inevitably that means they're going to get the sales boost because you'll keep complaining until you pick it up and read it and decide whether or not you like it or not. So in that sense, it's sort of it makes sense for them to do it from that side, from the marketing strategy and such. But it does feel a little bit forced when you sit back and see there's so many, but at the same time, it's got to happen sometime. Mm-hmm. We can't have just a bunch of white dudes running, even if it's a bunch of white dudes writing comics, which will totally be its own episode of diversity within the creation side. But the fact that it's a bunch of white dudes running around because they thought that their audience was white males for years, and they're realizing as these conventions get bigger and bigger that no, it's not. And there's a very passionate fan base that is not a, straight white male from the suburbs.
And it's the creative entities out there that are more inclusive towards, people of other colors or orientations that draw those fans then. So they would be smart to include some of that own diversity into their product in order to get some of those fans to look at them anew.
Right. So it does feel a little odd that they're trying to do all of these changes and make them all feel organic within their own titles. I am kind of okay. When I sit back and think about it, I like that idea. But you would think that it would make more sense to do like was it Infinite Crisis? Whatever they did where there was the 1 year later storyline where Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were just gone for a year.
Yeah.
Is having something like that where it's some huge crisis and all the heroes disappear, or like, not like Heroes Reborn, that kind of thing. But the idea of you take them off the map, you take them off the rosters, and then other people need to step up. Like with Reign of the Superman's dead. Here are 5 people who want to be Superman. Where it would make sense to have a big catastrophic event, and then you replace all the characters with these people and it doesn't matter what their backgrounds are. All that matters is they're willing to step up and then take on that mantle.
Exactly.
That was my initial thought. But it's true. Now that I sit back and think about it, maybe organically is better, because then it's not this is just clearly a giant marketing stunt and we hate you for doing this.
You
just took away all of our characters.
Is Steel.
Steel's still around, I think.
I
John Henry Irons, I want to say he's been introduced.
My understanding is that there's been no post-52.
The new 50. I thought he got introduced in the new 52. And then his daughter as well, who was, what was her name? She had her own steel armor for a while.
Okay.
And was part of the new Infinity Incorporated storyline where Lex Luthor gave people powers. But she had her own armor for a while as well. And for the life of me, I can't remember her name. But yeah, but that sort of idea.
Because again, he's not Superman.
Right.
But he's a hero on his own right, willing to step up and fill the void.
And was really great in the Grant Morrison JLA run.
And Bippo. Bippo did his part too.
Yes. It's Bibbo, isn't it, with a B? Not Bippo with a P?
I don't know.
That sounds like a monkey to me, Bibbo.
It does sound like a monkey.
I thought it was Bibbo.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've read a Superman comic, admittedly.
So for our topic of the week, we're really running on time here. So our topic of the week is we don't care. We're cool with it.
Case by case basis, it would make more sense in certain cases than others.
Yeah.
But
like if it's called Iron Man, maybe that's a little weird. Maybe they could find another name. But in the end,
find another name for Thor, maybe.
If they're a popular character, the whole idea is eventually they'll probably get spun off into their own character.
And it makes more sense to putting a new character into the role, because to just keep the same character for 80 years, it begins to test the limits of what you're willing to believe is possible.
Stories have been told. There's plenty of Tony Stark stories out there. So why don't you give somebody new a chance, and don't make up your mind until you've seen it.
Yeah.
Cool. Bop-a-doo. Dap-a-doo. So that is it for this week. Thank you very much, Liam, for joining me.
Of course.
I look forward to having you back whenever we can work out a time to do that.
Sounds good.
Because I like having other comic book people here. I hope this sounded okay. We're recording in my basement, not in my sound booth, so we have a little more room to move around. If you like this podcast, if you like Liam, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter. I am at Knowby. That's at KNOWBY. You can also email me at thecomicbox@gmail.com. Or the absolute best way to spread the word about this podcast is to leave me a star rating or a review. And feel free, if it's like Home Improvement, where you're like, boy, we love that Al. And so your review is, boy, we love that Liam. And you don't mention me at all. I'm okay with that. It's just nice to hear people's opinions. Are you online on Twitter? Have a blog somewhere people can find you?
I'm on the Facebooks, but I am not so much on the Twitters.
So you can look up Liam O'Rourke. That's got an apostrophe.
I'm one of
there.
1,000 on there.
Yeah, he's the big bearded guy. Is your picture you though, or is it like a?
Right now, it's not. It's Millhouse.
Okay.
And he's hugging the false Millhouse.
Or you're
from
also
Shelbyville.
Or you're also on Steam.
I am on Steam as Crotch Niblets.
So that exists. And also, we have to tell you, make sure to listen to the other podcasts in the Geek to Geek podcast network. You can also go to geektogeekcast.net, and you can sign up for updates, so you'll get them in your email inbox every time a new podcast is available. And you can choose which titles you are interested in. So that is it for this week. So thanks again to Liam. I look forward to having him on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we will see you guys next time. Ba ba
ba ba
ba do 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 do
da da ba ba dow
skiddy bop skip skibbity bop do bow
ding ding ba bow.
Comic Box had another co-host. Everybody probably is gonna like it more than just listening to me. Aren't they?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good.
It was.
All right.